Have all the charges been dropped?
Yeah, I'm out on love.
Well, are you out on love or out of love? Which is it?
Out on love. Alone from night to night, you find me.
Now, James, this isn't the first time you and your wife have had a problem. Are the two of you going to be able to work this out?
Let's talk about some music.
Mr. Swaggart and other white theologians take a very strong theological position.
Yes, they do.
You don't question their right to believe in the correctness of their vision.
But I certainly
believe,
question their right to impose it on other people.
I believe in the correctness of the position of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
You keep getting parts that blacks don't necessarily get.
Isn't that embarrassing for the United States of America?
Yes.
In 1985, for you to have to sit there and make that statement. I'm embarrassed.
Now, this is the kind of story that makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about Hollywood. Imagine someone so unapologetically bold, so impossible to ignore. They didn't just shake the table. They flipped it over. And what did Hollywood do? They hit the brakes hard. From Muhammad Ali, who thinks talk show were too corny and didn't address real issues, and said exactly that on a talk show.
Well, you're happy again today, I can tell. Why do you, I've seen you...
To James Brown, who objects seemed out of his mind.
How did all of this trouble begin?
Living in America. There's nothing wrong.
To the legendary on the Arsenio Hall show.
When I saw you on the street, what I wanted to tell you is what you did with Farrakhan was so great, because we haven't been as supportive of you as we could have been. When I say we, I mean, you know, the rappers.
This isn't just a story about controversy. It's a peek behind the curtain of an industry where breaking the rules can make you a legend or a target. It's raw, it's real, and it's a reminder of what it takes to challenge the system. Let's start with Richard Pryor.
Unusual mind, very inventive. He just completed the movie Uptown Saturday Night, and he'll soon be seen on the Martin Luther King special, which airs on January 24th. Would you welcome the very inventive Richard Pryor? Richard?
Richard Pryor's 1973 stop by The Tonight Show was nothing short of legendary. He wasn't just cracking jokes, he was shaking up late-night TV with humor that hit deep. Pryor took on race and society in a way that made people laugh, squirm, and think all at once. Some viewers were caught off guard, but his raw, fearless style smashed through comedy's usual limits. That night wasn't just funny, it was a moment. Pryor proved that comedy could do more than entertain. It could challenge people and shine a light on uncomfortable truths. His boldness set the stage for a new wave of comedians who weren't afraid to get real.
Hey, boy, where'd you get that cake? You live around here? Who's your people? Why'd you get them teeth fixed? Blood dripping all out your mouth. Why don't you take care of yourself, boy?
For those who need a refresher, Richard Pryor was the comedian who brought grit, honesty, and realness to the spotlight. He turned tough life experiences into punchlines that stuck with you, flipping personal struggles and big topics into moments of genius. And The Tonight Show, that was the ultimate stage to make your mark. Hosted by Johnny Carson for what felt like forever, it wasn't just a talk show, it was where stars were made. Next, Muhammad Ali.
Well, you're happy again today, I can tell. Why do you, I've seen you...
Muhammad Ali wasn't just a boxing legend. He was the blueprint for how to own the spotlight in and out of the ring. With moves that were as sharp as his words, he dominated as the first heavyweight champ to snag the title 3 times. But Ali wasn't all punches and footwork. He had a way of turning heads with his bold takes on race, religion, and politics. After joining the Nation of Islam, he dropped the name Cassius Clay and became Muhammad Ali, making it clear he was rewriting the rules. His refusal to fight in the Vietnam War? Iconic. He stood firm on his beliefs, even when it cost him his titles and time in the ring. The drama? Eventually overturned by the Supreme Court, no less. Fast forward to his appearance on the Mike Douglas Show in the 70s. Ali shared the stage with Sly Stone, yes, the funk legend, and the two brought the energy. Muhammad Ali's on the Mike Douglas show, just straight up calling out the world. He's like, it's crazy. There's so much going wrong, and people are just ignoring it. He's totally fed up with how fake everything feels on TV, especially in America. Everyone's laughing and acting like everything's fine. But meanwhile, people are starving and dealing with real struggles. Ali's not here for the distractions. He wants people to take things seriously.
Because I am troubled. We have so many problems in the world, and these shows are not getting on yourself, just leave you out. But in general, these shows are so phony.
Yeah.
Everybody's laughing.
That's right.
That's right. Everything is a laugh here in America.
That's right.
Nobody's serious. People hungry.
But it ain't
war,
like that.
all kind of trouble. And kiki.
That's right.
Next, James Brown.
How did all of this trouble begin?
Living in America. There's nothing wrong.
AKA the Godfather of Soul, was the ultimate music trailblazer. With bangers like I Got You, I Feel Good, and Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, he practically invented the blueprint for funk, soul, and R&B. James Brown's CNN interview, total chaos. Instead of owning up to some serious accusations, like allegedly attacking his wife with a lead pipe and shooting at a car she was in, he starts singing the chorus of Living in America, like everything's cool. As if that wasn't bizarre enough, he drops lines like, this is a man's world, and starts plugging a Christian magazine he's working on.
Have all the charges been dropped?
Yeah, I'm out on love.
Well, are you out on love or out of love? Which is it?
Out on love. Alone from night to night, you find me.
Now, James, this isn't the first time you and your wife have had a problem. Are the two of you going to be able to work this out?
Let's talk about some music.
People started wondering if he was on something, maybe PCP, because his behavior was all over the place. Definitely not the kind of interview you'd expect from a music legend, but it's one that still gets talked about for all the wrong reasons. Next, Diana Ross. Diana Ross, Motown queen and absolute legend, started out as the lead for the Supremes, a group that practically ruled the charts back in the day. They cranked out hit after hit like Stop, In the Name of Love, and Baby Love. But Diana wasn't about to stop there. She broke out on her own and crushed it as a solo artist with tracks like Ain't No Mountain High Enough and Upside Down. Oh, and did we mention she also killed it on the big screen in Lady Sings the Blues and the Wiz? Multi-talented, doesn't even begin to cover it. Now, when Diana sat down with Oprah in 1993 on the Oprah Winfrey Show, people were expecting pure magic. But what they got? More like Tension Central. Diana's bold energy and Oprah's warm and fuzzy hosting style didn't exactly mix, and the whole thing turned into a bit of a power struggle. Fans were living for the drama, though, as Diana opened up about her life and career in her own unfiltered way. Awkward? Sure. Iconic? Definitely. Next, Marvin Gaye.
To bring some loving here today.
Marvin Gaye wasn't just a music legend. He was the voice behind classics like What's Going On, I Heard It Through the Grapevine, and Sexual Healing. His soulful sound defined a generation. But behind the smooth hits, Marvin dealt with some heavy struggles, like depression and addiction. In 1977, Marvin hit up the Midnight Special, a show that was all about live music and big-name artists. While fans probably expected his usual smooth operator energy, Marvin flipped the script and got real about his battles with mental health and substance abuse. People were shook. This was the guy whose music always felt like an escape, and here he was, laying it all bare. Next, Tupac.
When I saw you on the street, what I wanted to tell you is what you did with Farrakhan was so great, because we haven't been as supportive of you as we could have been. When I say we, I mean, you know, the rappers.
Tupac Shakur, or 2PAC as the world knew him, wasn't just a rapper. He was a movement. His lyrics hit deep, tackling everything from racism to life in the streets, and his influence still echoes today. It's no surprise he's one of the most legendary artists ever to do it. When Tupac pulled up on the Arsenio Hall show, he brought his signature no-filter energy. He laid it all out, calling out systemic racism and police violence in a way that felt bold, even for him. Some people weren't ready for it back then, But looking back now, it's like he saw the future. And of course, he hit the stage with Stretch to perform Pain, delivering the raw emotion that made him unstoppable. That moment, pure history in the making. Tupac didn't just entertain, he woke people up, and his presence on that stage proved why he was, and still is, untouchable. Next, Eartha Kitt.
They were interested in me supporting him in his ideas of escalating the Vietnamese wars and also beautifying America. And my contention was, how can you beautify America without beautifying the people by giving them jobs first, and then you can beautify America.
Eartha Kitt was more than just a star. She was a force of nature who never bit her tongue. With her signature voice and that unforgettable turn as Catwoman, she dazzled on stage, lit up screens, and owned every room she walked into. But beyond the glitz, Eartha was all about keeping it real, no matter the consequences. At a White House luncheon all about fixing youth problems, Eartha didn't hold back. She straight up called out President Johnson and First Lady Lady Bird over the Vietnam War, saying young people were acting out because they were being sent to fight a battle they didn't even understand. Let's just say the room wasn't ready for that level of realness. Her honesty didn't come without consequences, though. Hollywood turned its back on her, and rumors even started swirling about the CIA keeping tabs on her. Eartha wasn't fazed, though. She took her talents overseas, made her comeback on her own terms, and proved you can't silence a legend. Next, Sammy Davis.
Because where else but in America could one grown man hug another grown man and get invited to his house later?
Sammy Davis Jr. wasn't just an entertainer. He was a full-on legend. This guy could sing, dance, act, and charm the socks off anyone. A key member of the Rat Pack with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, Sammy owned the stage with hits like The Candyman and What Kind of Fool Am I? But more than that, he smashed through racial barriers in Hollywood long before it was the norm. So when Sammy hit up the Mike Douglas show, everyone tuned in. But instead of just cracking jokes or showing off his killer dance moves, Sammy dropped a bomb. He openly backed President Richard Nixon, a move that had everyone talking. Let's just say not everyone was thrilled, especially since Nixon wasn't exactly a favorite in the black community. And that hug with Nixon? Yeah, that made things even messier. Sammy's fans were not feeling it, but he stood his ground. He genuinely believed he could make a difference by staying close to the top. Unpopular opinion? For sure. But Sammy wasn't about to let backlash stop him from doing what he thought was right. Next, Michael Jackson.
Why do you always grab your crotch? Why do I grab my crotch? Yeah,
Michael Jackson, yeah, the king of pop himself, was the kind of superstar who didn't just dominate music. He practically redefined it. From Thriller to Billie Jean and Beat It, his hits weren't just songs. They were cultural moments. But behind the moonwalks and glittery gloves, Michael's life was far from picture perfect. So when he let Oprah into his Neverland Ranch for his first ever TV interview, the world couldn't look away. Everyone was glued to their screens while Michael got real about some of the biggest rumors swirling around him. He opened up about having vitiligo, the skin condition that caused his changing complexion, and got super personal about his rough childhood, even calling out his dad, Joe Jackson, for being harsh and abusive. The whole thing sparked a mix of sympathy and skepticism, with fans and critics arguing over his revelations. But one thing was clear. Michael wasn't just a pop star. He was a complicated, misunderstood legend, trying to live his truth under the brightest spotlight in the world. Next, Bill Cosby.
And being a male, this man thing, there was nothing I could do about it. And I felt very, very helpless.
Bill Cosby, yeah, the Bill Cosby, was the guy who made family-friendly comedy cool. From his legendary stand-up to his hit shows like I Spy and The Cosby Show, he was pretty much America's dad for decades. But then, you know what happened. His clean image got totally shattered when accusations of sexual assault came pouring in, eventually leading to his conviction. So back in the day, Bill Cosby hopped on Larry King Live to drop some serious thoughts about personal responsibility in the black community. His take? Basically, he called out some folks for not taking enough accountability for their actions. His comments rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, with some feeling like he was totally out of touch. Little did we know, those polarizing moments were just a glimpse of what would go down later in his career. Next, Spike Lee.
He owned up to the fact that he was responsible for a lot of the climate that permitted, what happened, and that he was saying that he hoped that this film heals wounds and doesn't open it.
Spike Lee, the director who doesn't hold back, made waves once again when he hit up the Charlie Rose Show to talk about his movie Malcolm X. Of course, it wasn't all about the film. Spike went hard on Hollywood's diversity problem, calling out Clint Eastwood's Webakwi Flicks letters from Iwo Jima and Flags of Our Fathers for totally ignoring black soldiers. Clint wasn't having it and told Spike to shut his face, kicking off a full-blown feud. Things got so heated that even Steven Spielberg had to step in to cool things down. Spike's comments sparked a much-needed conversation about diversity and representation in Hollywood, something he's never been shy about fighting for. It's just one more reason why Spike Lee's got that legendary status in the film world. Next, Whoopi Goldberg.
Is it racist? Do you think it's racism? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's just crazy.
Whoopi Goldberg, always the queen of speaking her mind, popped on to the Rosie O'Donnell Show to chat about her latest projects, including Ghosts of Mississippi and A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. But of course, it wasn't just about the work. Whoopi got real about her controversial jokes at the 1996 Oscars, where she called out Hollywood for its lack of diversity. Some people didn't think her jokes were funny, but Whoopi wasn't backing down. She explained that humor is a way to tackle serious issues, and she wasn't about to stay quiet just to keep things comfortable. Whether you agreed with her or not, Whoopi wasn't afraid to stir the pot. That's just how she does it. Next, Grace Jones.
Well, don't turn your back on me anymore.
I can't look at you. No, hold on, just a minute. Just.
Grace Jones wasn't having it when Russell Hardy disrespected her on The Russell Hardy Show. Mid-interview, he turned his back on her to chat with other guests. And let's just say Grace wasn't having any of that. In true Grace fashion, she slapped him on live TV. She later revealed in her book that she was already dealing with a bunch of stuff, feeling off from bad coke, pigeon poop, and a sinus infection. But even with all that going on, Grace wasn't sorry. She called out Hardy for being rude and said she was just standing up for herself. Guess it's safe to say she wasn't the type to let anyone disrespect her on TV or off. Next, Eddie Murphy.
They really think they going. They pass them out. Now, if we actually pass these out, these folks can get into this or not?
Yes, but then it'd be like 25 relatives like this. I can't believe you did this to me.
Eddie Murphy dropped some real talk on Late Night with David Letterman, talking about race in Hollywood and comedy. When asked about how being a black actor affected his career, Eddie was straight up like, "It's never been an issue for me." He said he'd basically transcended the struggles that a lot of black actors face in the industry. His comments stirred up some serious conversation. Some people thought he was getting a bit too bold for mainstream TV. But honestly, it was just Eddie being Eddie, challenging Hollywood's lack of diversity while still playing the game on his own terms. Next, Paul Mooney.
They go into space, a woman's in charge, it's great. They put this man in a room and something crawls out of his stomach that looks like a snake and chases everybody around the room. Yip, 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 yip. I was there with two big black guys, scared them to death. I said, "Dear God, don't let the police find out these black people are afraid of yip yips."
Paul Mooney was a comedian, writer, and actor who wasn't afraid to stir the pot. Born in Shreveport, Louisiana, Mooney grew up in the middle of the civil rights movement, witnessing racism up close. He kicked off his comedy career writing for In Living Color before working with legends like Richard Pryor. Mooney's comedy wasn't for the faint of heart. He tackled tough topics like racial injustice and inequality, pushing boundaries and often sparking controversy. His fearless, unapologetic style made him a standout voice in comedy, always challenging audiences to think deeper while making them laugh. On The Joan Rivers Show, Paul Mooney, known for his sharp comedy and no-holds-barred commentary, dropped some truth bombs on race and society. His blunt, unapologetic approach definitely made Joan and the audience squirm, but there was no denying how thought-provoking his points were. Mooney used his humor to dive deep into heavy topics like racial inequality and police brutality, shedding light on uncomfortable truths while keeping everyone on their toes. Next, Sinéad O'Connor.
Of good over evil. Fight the real enemy.
Sinéad O'Connor's Saturday Night Live moment back in the day is still one of those, did she really just do that? TV moments. During her performance of Bob Marley's War, she straight up held up a photo of Pope John Paul II, ripped it apart, and dropped the mic with "Fight the Real Enemy." Yeah, she went there, and it was all a protest against the church's mishandling of child abuse cases. Of course, the fallout was huge. NBC kicked her off the show for life, and celebrities like Joe Pesci and Madonna didn't hold back, making fun of her on later episodes. To top it off, she got booed at a Bob Dylan tribute concert shortly after. But Sinéad wasn't backing down. She stood firm, saying her goal was to shine a light on the church's issues with child abuse. Bold for sure, but she was all about using her platform to speak out, even if it meant facing some serious heat. Next, Louis Farrakhan.
Mr. Swaggart and other white theologians take a very strong theological position.
Yes, they do.
You don't question their right to believe in the correctness of their vision.
But I certainly question their right to impose it on other people.
I believe in the correctness of the position of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Louis Farrakhan, the leader of the Nation of Islam, made waves when he appeared on the Phil Donahue Show. This was no chill, sit-back interview. Farrakhan came in hot, dropping truth bombs on race, religion, and politics, and not holding back on some seriously controversial opinions. He talked about everything from institutionalized racism to his call for reparations, and didn't hold back on his criticism of the U.S. government. Of course, the crowd and even Phil were not exactly vibing with everything he said, which led to some heated moments. But Farrakhan wasn't there to make friends. He was there to spark conversation, and boy did he. His boldness made that episode unforgettable and kept people talking long after it aired. Next, John Amos.
But I wasn't the most diplomatic guy, like I said, in those days, and they got tired of having their lives threatened over jokes. So they said, to tell you what, why don't we kill him off, and we'll all get on with our lives.
John Amos, the actor we all know from Good Times, became a household name in the 70s, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. He started out as a TV writer and producer before landing acting gigs in the late 60s. His most iconic role? James Evans Sr. on Good Times, a sitcom that broke new ground by focusing on a working-class black family in Chicago. But here's the drama. After Amos was let go from the show in 1976, he didn't just fade into the background. He went on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and straight up aired his frustrations about how the show was heading. Spoiler, he wasn't too happy with the direction it was taking. Next, Diahann Carroll.
You keep getting parts that blacks don't necessarily get.
Isn't that embarrassing for the United States of America?
Yes.
In 1985, for you to have to sit there and make that statement. I'm embarrassed.
Diahann Carroll was a total game changer in Hollywood, shattering barriers left and right. Not just an actress and singer, she was straight up iconic. After snagging a Tony Award for her role in No Strings, Diahann made history as the first black woman to score a lead role in a TV series where she wasn't just playing some tired servant trope. The show that made it all happen? Julia. In 1985, she talked about the struggle of being a black woman in Hollywood. It wasn't all glitz and glam for her. She had to work twice as hard to get the roles that didn't just box her in. She didn't hold back. She called out how ridiculous it was that in 1985, she still had to say she was landing roles most black actors couldn't even dream of. Isn't that embarrassing for America? She asked. And then she answered her own question. I'm embarrassed. As an American talk about a mic drop moment. And lastly, Red Foxx.
See, these people do their cooking and laundry in the same pot.
He practically rewrote the comedy rulebook. Known for his no-holds-barred humor, he became a nightclub legend during the Civil Rights era, earning the title King of the Party Records for dropping comedy albums that were as raw as they were hilarious. But his real breakout? playing Fred G. Sanford on Sanford and Son, the grumpiest junk dealer in Watts, Los Angeles. The show was pure gold, running from 1972 to 1977 and cementing Foxx as a TV icon. His fearless comedy, full of sharp language and grown-up themes, paved the way for generations of comedians to come. Red Fox wasn't just funny, he was bold, fearless, and always ready to call out the nonsense. The guy behind Fred G. Sanford on Sanford and Son didn't just crack jokes. He used his platform to tackle tough stuff like racism and censorship in comedy. Red didn't hold back. He called out how black comedians were boxed in and said it was time to shake things up. Not surprisingly, his no-filter attitude made waves, and network execs got nervous about the heat his comments might bring. But that's what made Red iconic. He wasn't here to play it safe. He was here to speak his truth, even if it ruffled feathers.